Okay, today I went out and picked some cattail. Uh, like I said before, cattail grows down in lakes, mostly in lakes. Sitting water is where you'll find it, on the edge of the lake, and sometimes it's scattered in the lake. And I should change that. It's not really lakes; it's more like ponds and marshy areas, smaller lakes. Sometimes you'll find them on larger lakes, but it's usually lakes where there's not a lot of turbulence in the water. So, like on the finger of a lake, you might run into some cattails where there's not that much wind blowing the water around. Anyhow, so right now I'm processing them. The ends, nice and soft, tender, pretty good. But this is the first time I grabbed cattails in such a in. This is the first time I grabbed cattails to process them without just eating them. Usually, when I grab them in the field, I eat them in the field. They're just like a field snack. But this time, I'm bringing them home and maybe cooking them, throwing them in a salad. They'd be great in a salad. But I'm finding there's a little bit of a trick to process them to get the maximum amount of edible ends out of the cattails, because a lot of the cattail is fibrous. If you're familiar with asparagus, you got to cut a certain end off, which is really tough. Same thing with broccoli stems, and it's pretty much the same thing here. So let me see if I can set this up to show you the trick. Okay. So it goes in layers, kind of like an onion. You can peel off a leaf just like this, and the further down you get at the end, it gets softer. So I'm trying to preserve the soft edible end, and go to cut it with a knife right there, and it's still pretty tough. But this whole piece right here, cut that end off right there. That whole piece is nice and soft and pretty edible. But with the rest of it, since I cut this end off here, that part that's nice and edible, there's more in here, but the sheave of the grass, because this is actually like a tall grass, is still pretty tough. So what I do is take one of the layers off that's tough, that I tried to cut through a second ago, and test it with the knife again to see where I can cut, and see how far I can cut down until I'm not able to cut anymore. So that's about as far as I'll go on that. It started to get pretty tough there. I'm going to take these pieces and put them in our bowl, and then peel off another sheaf. In the future, there's still a lot of tenderness in here. It's just I haven't really thought of a good way to get that out. When I do it in the field, when I peel these off in the field, I'll just scrape it off with my teeth. But maybe cooking it down or scraping it off with a knife, I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to get to these good edible bits inside. But there's a lot of nutrition, a lot of meat. A lot of meat in here still. Alright, so I can continue cutting. And that's probably about as far as I'll go there before I pull off another sheaf. So that's it. Just wanted to show you how I'm processing these, and I hope that was edifying. Shalom. Also, the grass, the green part itself, In the future, might try cooking this as well, because there's a lot of nutrition in this part. The only problem with this part is just very fibrous. So the only way to get that nutrition out, I imagine, is just to cook it down, make a stock out of it. It's got a nice, almost celery-like taste to it, so I imagine it'd make a pretty good stock. In researching a cattail, I found a little bit more information on the edibility of cattail. And yeah, I was kind of amazed to discover how much of the plant is actually useful. And Lord willing, someday I can actually explore all these different uses. But I'm gonna link this article in the description, but I'll read a little bit here. Most of the cattail plant can be used for food. The roots can be ground into flour. The pollen can be gathered and used as a substitute for some of the flour in pancakes to make cattail pancakes. It also works well with cornmeal in cornbread and can be used as a thickener for flour extenders for breads, cakes, etc. The sticky sap between cattail leaves is an excellent source of starch and can be used to thicken soups and broths. The white shoots at the base of the leaf clusters can be boiled or steamed or sliced and eaten raw in salads. Now that's the part I was cutting off and using. And I did actually try it in salads, pretty good. But I also actually tried it in soup too. I recently did a video on super soup, which is kind of like a Japanese or Asian soup because it uses mushrooms and seaweed. And it actually acted like a what do you call that, water chestnut in the soup, in that it retained that crunchy texture even through cooking. So it actually added a really nice texture to the soup. In the early spring, the roots can be dug up to locate the small pointed shoots called corms. These can be removed, peeled, and eaten. They can also be added to other spring greens for a salad or cooked in stews. As the plant growth progresses to where the shoots reach a height of 2 to 3 feet above the water, they can be peeled and eaten like corms or sauteed. These shoots are called Cossack asparagus because the Russians were so fond of them. And I'll go ahead and leave it there. Lord willing, this is edifying and you got a little bit more herbal knowledge today. It's herbal and wild food, of course. Anyhow, shalom.